He opens his mouth, and just vomits his entire lunch down her shirt. The dude was an artist at rebellion. Hello, my name is Alex, and welcome to our spotlight. Today, Leslie and I will be checking out the best ways someone rebelled against school rules. These kids will be legends. Back in the 1980s, there was one kid in my school who was hardcore into the punk scene. He had a bright blue, 6 inches high, razor-thin, stand-up straight mohawk. The principal gave him detention for being a distraction, and his parting words that day were, "And tomorrow, no more blue mohawk." The next day, the kid came in with the same mohawk, only in bright pink.
No hats in school. In high school junior year, there was this one kid in my grade that was allowed to due to him having a low, wow, this is tough to say, alopecia universalis, which is basically having rapid baldness. A new teacher wasn't aware that he was allowed to, and asked him to take it off. The kid explained why he was able to. But the substitute didn't believe him, forced him to take it off, and was being very cruel to him for wearing the hat, and his lack of hair. The next day, everyone wore hats to school as a sort of rebellion against the teacher. She got really mad and started yelling at the students, and said some nasty things. She got fired.
When I was in high school, there was a rule implemented that if you showed up late to school, you had to go to the front office to get a detention slip. You would then have to give it to the teacher for that period, who would then mark it down, and you were required to go to lunch detention for that day. I figured out by the third slip that literally no one cared, teachers, security, or students. So, when I was subsequently late for the rest of the year, I would take out an old slip that I had from a previous detention, walk through school, give it to my teacher to mark down, then take it back to give to the lunch detention supervisor. But I never went to detention, because the front office didn't have record of me being late. I was late no less than 50 times my senior year, only having been reprimanded the initial 3 times. I even told my parents about it after I had graduated, and even they agreed it was dumb and funny.
Senior year, my school banned jackets. A friend was cold, wore his jacket to lunch, and the VP told him to take it off. Friend pulls out the student handbook, and asked, where it said he couldn't wear it? VP flips for a while and ends up showing him the or anything the administration seems disruptive clause. Friend rolls his eyes but takes off his coat. The next day, friend comes in with the same tweed sport coat the VP wore every day.
After Columbine, our school banned black trench coats. For the most part, nobody cared, except the mysteriously gothic trench coat kid. He had worn a trademark black trench coat every single day because it made him different, and then all of a sudden, the school tells him he can't do that anymore. The kid went out of his way to find, or make, different colored trench coats and wore those instead. My favorite one was covered in duct tape.
I was at a private school that had rules about the length of boys' hair. One guy in particular, always ignored the rule, and the administration would tell him to get a haircut every so often. But he never did. Eventually, when his hair got about down to his shoulders, the principal pulled him aside, and told him that his hair was twice the allowed length, and by next week, it needed to be shortened by half. Monday rolls around, and he comes in with half his head shaved, and the other side as long as ever. We were impressed by literal interpretation of the principal's request, but it still ended up with him getting a suspension for a week, and he had to shave the other side before he could come back.
Last day of senior year, we started a food fight at lunch. And by food fight, I mean we drew angry faces on an orange and an apple, then faced them toward each other, made a big circle around them, and we all reacted like we were watching a fight. All the security guards ran to break up the fight, only to make their way to the middle of the circle to find 2 pieces of fruit sitting on the ground.
A buddy of mine was caught messing with his phone during class. Back then, the school rules were that if you were caught, your phone was confiscated for an entire day, and you couldn't get it back until the next day. This was before smartphones, and the rules have changed since the 10 years that I graduated there. So, Buddy hands in his phone, but doesn't seem to worry about it. He waits a couple of classes until lunch break, and asks me to come with him. He's gonna get his phone back. We go to the staff room, where the confiscated phones were held, and asks a teacher there if he could copy down a phone number into my phone, so he could call his dad later that day. Teacher agrees, and gives him the phone. I hand him mine, and we wait for him to copy the number. When he's done, he gives me mine back, and sticks his own phone in his pocket. He was known as a bit of a joker, so when he jokingly said, "Thalp, thanks a lot, see ya," the teacher immediately laughs, tells him to stop messing about, and to give the phone back. Laughing and joking about being caught, he does. But not really. See, he had a second phone, exact same model, except this one was broken. Wouldn't charge anymore, he said. So, when he stuck his good phone in his pocket, it was right next to the broken one. When the teacher made him give back the phone, he just gave back the broken one. It was the best switcheroo I have ever seen in my time at that school. He was so fluent, so nonchalant about the whole thing. It was amazing to see.
Friend was told in high school by his guidance counselor, not to waste his time applying to his dream school because he wouldn't get in. He got pissed off and went to the principal, who told him it was the counselor's job to give her best opinion. So he trusts whatever she says. He applied anyway, and got in. He took the acceptance letter, made a copy, and taped them to both the principal and counselor's door with, "Thanks for nothing," written on both. He didn't even go to that school. He couldn't afford it, but it was the principle of the matter.
We had a French teacher who was really bad, and most people barely tolerated. It happened a few times that whoever arrived first would stand outside her door, as if waiting for her to show up, and unlock it, and the rest of the class would just queue up behind them pretending to believe them. Meanwhile, the teacher would just be sitting inside wondering where her class was.
My daughters, both went to a Catholic high school. My younger one had a bit of a wild streak. The girls were required to wear a skirt every day to school. My daughter did not care for this rule and wore her skirt around her head one day, since the dress code required the students to wear a skirt, just not wear. I was told that she was wearing spandex underneath. That's how my daughter got a new rule in her high school dress code.
Elementary school had a ban on extreme hair colors. My brother shows up with fire truck red hair. Principal stops us both, as we're entering the school, and she's going off on my brother. She's berating him, saying, "Who do you know that has red hair like that?" Without skipping a beat, Ronald McDonald. Principal just grabbed him, and dragged him into the office. My 4th grade brain was in shock that he just one-upped a grown-up like that. She called my dad, and he promptly didn't give a care, and months later, Ro went from red to green to purple.
This was prior to smartphones, circa 2002. One of my classmates was a regular class clown. He would buy brownies in the cafeteria, and roll them up in his hand so they looked like a convincing piece of poo. He would then do all sorts of antics with this poo. Put it on seats, throw it at people. Obviously, the school staff caught on and he got in trouble. This guy didn't go quietly though. He was required to sit alone at lunch for the entire school year. There were months left before summer. The one teacher who made sure his punishment was severe, made regular rounds of the lunchroom to maintain order. She would pass his lone seat during her rounds. One day, he made another very convincing pastry-sauced poo, and had it ready for her when she passed. The entire lunchroom was watching out of the corner of their eyes, while maintaining an alibi, conversing with the people close to them. When she passed, He stood up and snuck behind her, and slipped the pastry poo in her purse that she was carrying on her shoulder, and he quickly ran back to his seat. The lunchroom burst into laughter, and the teacher had no idea why. Until later, of course. The dude was an artist at rebellion.
So, I went to high school in South Texas, an area in which it almost never snows. For me, this doesn't mean anything, but I have lived in the north for most of my life. So, I know what it's like to play in snow. However, somehow it ended up snowing overnight. And by snowing, I mean like what snow looked like in the North Deep, and not just thin and watery. These were immensely heavy flakes. We were all sure that they would cancel school, because Texas does not have salt machines or snow plows, and the roads were super slick. A lot of parents didn't want their kids to go to school because they didn't feel comfortable with a bunch of new high school drivers on ice. Yet alas, they of course did not cancel school. A little rain knocks out our whole district, but a foot of snow. And nothing. My mother made us take the bus because, although she felt comfortable driving in snow, being from Illinois, Texas drivers are more aggressive, and the roads weren't properly cleared. I took the bus, and it was like being on a safari tour. Kids were taking pictures of the icicles on trees, all wide-eyed. It was funny. Once we got to school though, the campus looked like a war zone. No one would go inside, and had instead resorted to snowball fights on the entire campus and parking lots. Once the bell rang, of course no one went inside. I watched from the window as the vice principal went to the front of the school, and commanded the kids inside, of course getting nailed in his bald ass head by snowballs. He finally managed to round up the row kids, and we all went about first period. I had a relaxed teacher, who knew no one would pay attention. Since half the class was missing anyway, she let us act out the Civil War with snowballs and took us outside. While we were playing outside, we all paused as we heard the fire alarm went off. The school came pouring out for the next 2 periods. The dude that pulled the fire alarm is a legend, and lives on at our school till this day. He did in fact get arrested, along with another kid that thought it'd be smart to throw ice at a cop. That was the one time I saw the high school completely not have a handle on anyone.
This Josh kid I knew had to take a dump, asked if he could go to the bathroom, and the teacher wouldn't allow him a hall pass in high school. Which is the dumbest thing ever invented anyway. So he got up, walked to the front of the room, and crapped his pants in front of the class, then blamed the teacher for it.
I had a classmate in 12th grade, get up to go to the bathroom. The teacher tried to block him, and told him he should have gone between classes. He opens his mouth, and just vomits his entire lunch down her shirt.
I was in a Christian high school at the time. The day before winter break rolls around, and I had packed a few Toblerone chocolate bars, and some notes for the teachers I most appreciated, with the intention of leaving them as a Christmas gift. Before school, the principal made a public announcement that students were not to give any teachers any gifts unless we were going to give all teachers the same gift. This was obviously a bit of a problem, since I couldn't exactly come back the next day with additional candy bars. So I marched into her office to address this issue. Upon entering the office, I made a show of opening a chocolate bar, and breaking off exactly one piece, and placing it on her desk. I told her that I was going to give her a full candy bar, but I now had to share her chocolate bar with other teachers that I didn't really care so much about anyways. That rule was quietly lifted. Next up is probably my favorite one. Enjoy?
This was probably around 2001 to 2002 or so. I ran an illicit, unfiltered, internet access cartel out of my school library. So my school had what was then considered high-speed internet. It was like 3 or 4 MB, but it was fast for the time. The cost, however, was that it was highly filtered, and most sites that weren't directly school-related were blocked. So, in our driver's ed class, we had a driving lab. Before they let you drive the real car with the insurance, and the hitting things and whatnot, you had to demonstrate proficiency on what was basically the world's most boring video game. They had a wheel and pedals, and whatnot set up, and you'd get missions where you had to drive around a fictional town obeying all traffic laws. So, one day I had finished my mission, and was sitting and waiting for the lab to end, when I noticed a sticker on my monitor. It had what looked like a username and password combo. Sitting at the login screen of the computer feeling bored, I tried it for shits and giggles, and it actually worked. I don't remember the password, but I do remember the username was CityLab7. So anyway, after poking around a bit, I realized that this account didn't have any internet filtering on it, and had local admin rights on the computer. Yeah. Score. I used it for a while to do random stuff online, Ibounds World, Newgrounds, that kind of stuff. Well, one day a friend was complaining about the filter, so I logged him in and let him go ham. It then occurred to me that this was a service people could use. People always wanted to hop on Yahoo Chat, or hit Newgrounds, or whatever. So I started selling internet access for $1 for each 5 minutes. I only had 3 rules. 1. No explicit materials. 2. Keep another window open on schoolwork, and switch over if somebody's coming. 3. Keep your mouth shut. If you get caught, you're on your own. When somebody would buy my service, I'd go to their computer, do some hackery looking stuff, then log in using the username and password I had found. Well, word got around, and I became the library's internet dealer. I was rolling in snack bar money. Eventually, a couple friends wanted in on it, and since I couldn't be in the library all the time, I gave them the info in exchange for 10 to 20% of their take. We had basically a round-the-school clock rotation of unfiltered internet dealers. I have no idea how we kept it a secret for so long, but eventually, the hammer came down, somebody got busted looking at explicit stuff, and squealed like a stuck pig. One by one, my capos fell until my name came up, and I was summoned to the vice principal's office. I walked in, and the VP, without another word, just looked at me and said City Lab 7. I knew it was over. But I didn't realize how bad it was. Turns out, that account wasn't just a local admin account, but by some confluence of idiot administration and terrible security, was actually a full domain admin account. But it gets better, the school didn't have its own domain. It was on the city's domain. So that account with admin level access to property tax records, city finances, employee payroll, and God only knows what else, was being used by every dumbass kid that wanted to watch flash videos of stick figures getting run over by cars, or talk about how great the band Oasis was. They threatened me with expulsion, and threatened to call the cops, and report me for hacking the city's network. The school's IT administrator stepped in, negotiated with the VP, and offered me a deal. If I'd show them how I got in, and help them plug the hole, I'd get by with a 2-week suspension and a computer ban for the rest of the year. Naturally, I jumped on it. I took her to the driver's ed lab, and showed her the sticker still stuck to the monitor. She cursed, then took me back to the VP's office. Because I didn't actually hack anything, had no malicious intent beyond snack bar money, hadn't damaged anything, had cooperated with the investigation, and because the method I gained entry was so freaking stupid, they commuted my sentence to 3 days in school suspension, and a 2-week computer ban. They changed the password, and my empire came tumbling down. And that's the story of my rise, and fall, as the head of a school-wide internet cartel.
There you have it. Thank you for stopping at our spotlight. Please like and subscribe for more.